So I thought I would start just by reading you a prose poem. It's divided into four stanzas with other little bits of lines at the end, and it's set on BC's Vancouver Island. So it's called Bee at Sheringham Point Lighthouse, Shirley, British Columbia. Before the handsome man parks his car on the side of Highway 14, strips to his sculpted waist at Jordan River, dog leash in one hand and towel in the other, balancing precariously on pebbled, storm-spent rocks, there is the lighthouse. After the lighthouse, there is the man, the dog that is on and then off a leash, and a keen longing for the strong physicality of a man sculpted naked, wide shoulders, strong arms. The lighthouse comes before the man on the beach, white against blue of the Strait of Juan de Fuca, white against the bruised blues and blacks and grays of the mountains that rise in Washington state. The lighthouse promises pods of orcas, possibilities of humpbacks shifting waves, blowholes firing tsunami warnings, eagles that might flicker in peripheral vision, either eagles or detached retina. After the lighthouse comes the highway to Port Renfrew, curled and sinuous, a finger tracing out the makings of a word on your back after sex. Dyslexia stops you from reading the letters. The alphabet disappears as you mix up T with K, wondering what he's trying to tell you in silence. Before the man comes the revelation. Pebbles on the beach aren't even, sturdy, or steadfast. They shift with the tide, seaweed, shipwrecked hermit crabs. Before the man, though, there are blackberries at the trailhead leading down to Sheringham's Light. Stop there. Let your finger trace tiny globes hung ornament, green and red, one bloom and one bee that lingers near it. Don't jump or run. Playing runner and chaser forecast ruins of paths, sea roads, outbound tides, abandoned whirls of shell in tidal pools. Stand still. Don't fidget. Say hello and thank the bee for its bounty. Let it hover, buzzing. Remember this: the lighthouse comes before the man. The man is not the lighthouse, even if he shines so brightly. Distinctions are important now. On the edge of the Strait of Juan de Fuca, Sheringham's Light saved men, not the other way around. Mind the edge now. The cliffs are steep here. The signs tell you so. Step badly, slide down to water, miss the bee entirely. And the bee is still there, suspended in air, waiting near the blackberry bush. Um, and then I thought I would read you one from the opposite side of the country, from Nova Scotia. So I have to find it here. This is called Winter at Peggy's Cove, Nova Scotia. I did some house sitting for a friend, Catherine Banks, who's a playwright and lives out, or did at the time live out near Sambro. And I minded her house and her giant Irish wolfhound, Agatha. So this is my visit to Peggy's Cove. Your ghost gave me remnants of a hive to take down to the shore, wax worn down and peeling. Peeling, dead skin and proof of life, wax fashioned hexagon, memory box cells. Memory is a cell with a closed door, fashioned lock without a key. You whisper, return to see. Make me think of returns, keys, an old box full of old birth certificates, driver's licenses. We are full of paper. No birth without license to change until the seals come ashore at the cove, mermaids. In their wake, ashore, follow by more seals and lobster boats. Put the hive down, rest it on the black rocks, don't slip. Slip and fall, perish. The hive's down. Return to salt water. Weep and baptized with saltwater tears. Sleep, slip and fall, don't perish. That's a duplex, so there's a lot of repetition in the form itself. This one's called Itinerary. It's after Rue Borson's work. So the first part of the first line is As for you, dragonfly, and that's taken from one of Rue Borson's poems. As for you, dragonfly, you leave the island in the middle of the night, go out in search of a destination, last junction on a railway line, terminus point, hotel check-in. But your wingspan is too broad for landing. Four iridescent sails moved by muscles, independent and somehow still symphonic. Hover there, jet there, helicopter from edge of serrated leaf towards potential prey, smaller but protein laden. You only hunt when flying for food or mate. Stopping means starvation. As for you, a 3 a.m. departure means navigating by moon, searching for a far shoreline with faith. Follow. Current of air above lake water, ribbon of wave ripple. Or lead instead. Be the maritime lighthouse on an imagined sixth great lake, not a lost sailor. The compass rose or the shifting weather vane, the blood that rushes through heart, head. But what of a navigator? Is one needed? Old paper map, accordion pleated, blue highlighted highways that become country roads called Zion Line in Renfrew. Pin that, amber it in memory. As the crow flies, it's only a day's drive from north to southeast. On dragonfly wings, gossamer, a week. By bee, 2 weeks with fine weather, or 6 months by map, lost. Mark calendar days with a pen, blood red. Note time with 3 hands of a clock, one for hour, two for minute, three for quick sweep of seconds rushing by river. Fasten your seatbelt, dragonfly. Review emergency instructions in the seat pocket. Prepare for rough landing. Transformation is instinctual, illogical. Um, a lot of the middle poems are about specific species of bees, but I also have other pollinators in this collection. So there are dragonflies, there are beetles, and there are monarchs. Um, so I have a poem for you that was written on Manitoulin Island, which is a large freshwater island here in northern Ontario. It's called Misery Bay Monarchs. On the edge of Misery Bay, the Manitoulin monarchs soar. Above my bowed head, broken clouds. They too rise to soar. The radio tells me all at risk. Reports flock. Monarchs gather at Pelee. Every single one tries to soar. From here to Mexico, monarchs. For 5,000 kilometers. Who arrives on the Day of the Dead? Souls of lost butterflies soar. Plant your milkweed quickly now. Don't waste time. Invasive becomes native. Scientists know fewer monarchs soar. Plant asters and goldenrod, coneflower and black-eyed Susans. Put your hands to the earth, dig deep. Roots can rise to soar. I'll read you one that's inspired by Andrea Couch. And if I love ekphrastic poetry, I can't paint for the life of me, but I always wanted to be an artist in high school and I did not do well in art class. So I write about art, and Andrea Couch it's Kowch. She's this wonderful painter from around Detroit, Michigan, and she has these wonderful surreal paintings. And this painting is called Queen Anne's Lace. They have mistaken her hair for a hive, these bees that hover, buzz in her ears. She holds wild carrot, the plate from which they dine. Solitary queen, her floral tribute, a hive. Look away. She is mistress of all she surveys. Bees will arrive, planes to an airfield as they land. They have forgotten what wildness is. Their hive is a chimera. hair transformed, buzzing between ears. So when I was researching different kinds of bees across the world, it was fascinating to see that they were all held in great esteem from thousands of years ago. So this is called gathering the clay. 3,000 years ago, you put your hands down deep into thick Nile mud. Let your fingers scoop it up, closing your eyes as you touched essence of earth, the place of beginnings. From your cradle to coffin, you gathered clay for honeybee hives, food for the king's tomb, the pyramid still hovering geometric above that far horizon. Honey for a boy king, face masked with gold and indigo, left as gift for the world to come. Millennia later, some man dressed in khaki opened a door, brushed dust from his hands, found the jar. Archaeologists huddled, opened the lid, dipped their fingers. Ancient honey, still sweet, they marveled. How you went down to the river, dug your hands down deep into the muck of clay, how you gathered dung, straw, and mud to fashion tubes for bees that would soon die, but leave behind the honey for the king's crossing. So these poems kind of go all over the place. There are some Celtic poems that are set in Ireland, where with the Brehon laws, women were much more in charge in Ireland. So the Brehon laws are fascinating. And bees were messengers between this world and the other, as were crows, if you look at the Morrigan tales from Ireland. So it's interesting when you start to research these creatures with wings, how all of them seem to carry messages between this world and the other and speak of soul. Um, but it makes sense to me if the Irish were basically indigenous to that land, that those things would be there as well. And one notion is my grandmother was Irish Catholic, and she used to say if you saw a little white butterfly, it was the soul of someone you loved who had come back to say hello. So this is your soul is a bee. Some night, lay yourself down in that field as if giving yourself to a lover, opened, free. Let your fingers dig deep down into the turf. So peat gets under your nails, composts you before you know it. Sleep soundly now. The earth will embrace you whole. The wind will cross you in wet dazzle from the sea, holy. That old woman passing on the road sees you there just before dawn, watches a tiny bee exit your mouth. She remembers, if you ask her, how the soul is a bee that rises from the body, how it leaves one home for another. Read you. There's a section that's called Cortege, that's grief poems, just from having taken care of my mom and watching her as she died early. So this is such a little strange little poem with couplets that are not rhymed. I can't rhyme. I can do internal rhyme, but not external. I'm not great at that. So this poem has the longest title ever. In the bag I brought home from palliative care on the night my mother died. The memory of her voice when she was well, sing-song and Ottawa Valley descended, her laugh pealing like a bell, joyful, at noon on a Thursday, counting out 12, even though she died in the evening. A blue-lined recipe card with a note about chicken and dumplings. Don't measure, just use your hand, fingers, a pinch, not a teaspoon. Her brown eyes, long, graceful fingers on hands that played songs from West Side Story. Her stories remembered, and that I should have written down on paper where they could be kept safe. Lilacs, peonies, California poppies, and peppermint for smelling or putting in iced tea on hot July days. A paperback mystery, the page corner bent big, her bookmark left behind, never used. I'll read you one from Sudbury because it would be wild not to read you a Northern Ontario poem. I live in a mining town. People pretend it's not a mining town anymore, but it still is. Both sets of my grandparents were involved in the mines out in Coppercliff, and My grandmother lived 2 blocks from where I live now and was in a place at that time in the 70s and 80s where you could watch the slag pour. I know it sounds wild, but this is before environmentalism. This is called slag dump. Something to set your watch by, the way they poured the slag out over the ridge and how the house sat on the edge of the hill named Wembley Drive, and how you would turn off the lights in the kitchen so we 3 or 4 kids could kneel on the metal top of the table and widen our eyes to take in the scene. Better than fireworks, the slag's glow. The sky lit up as if a giant were using orange crayons to scrawl a line above the horizon. What was it? Leftovers, you told us, chuckling. Pieces of ore melting together, poured like lava down that hill. Later, friends would have slag as driveway, pay for bits of black rock to surface the roughest of gravel, stop the dust from rising without warning when you backed up the car. In winter, the slag would melt the snow, leave a trail, first red and orange, then black and cooled, as if it had never even snowed. In daylight, there wasn't a glow. In daylight, there was scorched earth and a smokestack that belched out detritus, raining acid on cars, metal stair railings, concrete steps, my tubed head. Um, I should probably just read you one more, really, trying to give you variety. I end up being like the Taylor Swift of love poems. It's so sad when you're 55, right? That you're Anyway, I'll read you Man Sleeping on the Living Room Floor. He was an unruly sideshow ghost lying on his back, stretched out elastic, eyes closed, hands at rest by sides, palms open. Watercolor memory. Now he's a blurred shape of a man, once gentle and kind, worn down. End of day, my home a nest, lost bird's refuge. How an unlocked door did not equal honest mind, open heart, sanctuary's trust. Feathers bent now, wings frayed by weather. I close my eyes. See you there, once beloved. I will read you one by another BC artist. Well, a BC artist I met when I was at MISA a couple of years ago on Vancouver Island, Mo Hamilton. And if you don't know her work, it's beautiful. She does lino print work. And so she has a project called 100 Houses and has 100 prints, lino prints of houses, and one is of a house falling. So this is an ekphrastic piece called Falling, and it's for Mo Hamilton. Shifts happen slowly through erosion over time. The sum of the parts is a house sliding off its foundation, too weak to hold, into a void, fast-moving river or sea. They will offer you water wings, a flutterboard, a pool noodle that will never decompose, in a landfill made of waste, born of excess. All things will have seen better days. Take note. Built on a concrete base, the feet of the house will age, as everything does. Sprout corns, bunions, thickened nails, and joints that shift too. Strong ankles and arches weaken over time. Concrete wears. No one watches it happen. A corner decays, chunks of mortar between red bricks tumble out when the moon tries on new phases. As calendars turn. Put an X there. Mark the spot of endings and resolutions. Put an X there too, a year or 5 later, because erosion is slow. First, bees shiver, the air a frizzen around wings, then a canary falls. One species goes as another soon takes its place in line. They wave goodbye with white cotton handkerchiefs that were bought in roadside antique shops along the eastern shore. Some things were made to last, sadly. Skeleton keys for houses full of locks, anchors and chains for tall ships crossing the Atlantic, greed for land that was never ours to misuse. When the landslide comes, what goes is the worry. A rare bird in Brazil, the painted butterfly from a documentary film, the bee doused in insecticide. The foundation is weak. Shore it up. This was published in the Hamilton Review of Arts and Letters a couple of years ago. When I was in Ireland last in 2018, I went to a museum in Kilfenora, and it was a wild museum because there's partly a tribute to the Kilfenora Céilí band, and then there's also this strange statue of a bear. So I was fascinated why this bear would be there. Kilfenora means city of crosses in Ireland. Some of the most ancient crosses are all there. So, and there's a Celtic, Druidic will there, well there, and then they've built. Of course, the Christians came in and built on top of or near the wells. So this is a note on the extinction of brown bears in Ireland. The last brown bear in Ireland lived about 2,500 years ago. After that, the bears vanished. When they died, their fur must have curled into spirals. It must have been caught up on the winds coming off the Atlantic. It must have blown across the Ring of Kerry down to Barra and then rolled itself dandelion-like across the sea to the wise steppes of the Skelligs. A scientist marked the bears' paths, places, and migration roads. They too perhaps encountered a famine. For some bears, deforestation might have meant a journey to the mountains in search of food and habitation. They may have danced with fairies or perished in places where the salmon once ran. Now, in Donegal, there are three brown bears that have traveled far from Lithuania, wildlife sanctuaries and rescue bears behind fences, tickets paid and backs of hands stamped. Extinction happens slowly, maybe while you take a breath and continue on your way. Before you know it, before you blink even, you have evolved or become extinct. Follow the fossils, and you'll find the place where the bears once walked. Follow the places where their footprints are pressed down into the earth in ways that mark their passages forever. The ghosts of the old brown bears weep. They know they cannot return. So there are definitely eco poems in here too. It's a wide variety inside the structure that's mythic. It's a wild little book that way. It's funny how you start writing poems and then see them come into a form in your head, an architecture, and then you're not sure of how they'll work, and then they sort of tell you how, oddly. I'll read you Afterbirth. It's in the third tale, Coda, a bee reflection. Go to the ocean, first to the west and then to the east. Bookend the passage with solace of sea, whales and shipwrecks, selkies and their cousin mermaids. Seaweed and lost fishermen too. To the west, Vancouver Island and Shawnigan Lake dawn swims. To the east, feeding a wood fire stove that fuels a Samborough house perched on the edge of the Atlantic so that the Irish wolfhound stays warm on Boxing Day. Hold on tight so the wind doesn't pick you up and fling you out towards the Grand Banks. The beekeeper was untrue. All smoke and mirrors. It comes to all good women tricked by two handsome men. The very notion that they were used solely for comfort, solace, safe harbor. Shake your heads now. Sure, they're all fancy talkers, quick to arrive and then quicker out the front door. Out there, way past the Sambro lighthouse, so many fishermen lost. Some as young as the peach fuzz that sprouted on their chins, above their lips. The depth of loss is greater than the depth of the sea, no matter where you measure from. Don't go out to the sea, boys. Raise bees instead. I wished they'd just gone trouting instead, stayed on a lake rather than go out to sea. The lobsters won't remember them, but the people will. And the story behind that is when I was out in Nova Scotia, there was a young man who was a lobster fisherman who died Boxing Day. His name was Christian Atwood. So I always think of him when I read these pieces. And then, of course, there's a nasty breakup in there too that's separate from that. So thanks very much.